Let's be honest. You've probably been behind a motorcycle that slowed down without any brake lights. No warning, just a smooth coast to a stop. It's confusing, maybe even frustrating. But what looks reckless often has a practical reason behind it. From silent stops to sudden takeoffs and odd hand signals, riders do things differently, and for good reason. In this video, we're breaking down 7 of the most confusing things only motorcyclists do, starting with the one that catches drivers off guard the most, the mysterious no-brake stop. Let's start with engine braking, or why a motorcyclist can slow down without ever touching the brake. You're behind a rider, everything seems normal, and then suddenly they start slowing down, but their brake light never comes on. No signal, no warning, just smooth, silent deceleration. What's going on? It's not a trick or a malfunction. It's called engine braking, and in the world of motorcycles, it's completely normal. When a rider rolls off the throttle and downshifts, the engine itself begins to resist the bike's forward motion. That resistance acts like a brake, slowing the motorcycle down without using the actual brake levers. Unlike in cars, where engine braking exists, but usually isn't strong enough to bring you to a full stop, motorcycles are much lighter. That lower weight means the engine alone can create a strong enough drag to slow the bike substantially, sometimes almost to a complete stop. Now, here's where it gets tricky. Motorcycle brake lights only turn on when the rider physically engages either the front or rear brake lever. If the rider is only engine braking, the brake light doesn't illuminate at all. So from a driver's perspective, it looks like the motorcycle is slowing down without any warning. And in fairness, it is, just not from the rider's point of view. They're fully aware of what they're doing. But the lack of a visible signal can easily catch an unaware driver off guard. So why would a motorcyclist choose to engine brake instead of just using the brakes? For one, it's smooth. Engine braking offers a gradual, controlled deceleration that doesn't upset the balance of the bike. It's also more efficient in terms of maintenance. Brake pads wear out, but engines are built to handle compression. Plus, experienced riders often feel more in control when they downshift through corners, or when reducing speed quickly in traffic without grabbing a handful of brakes. That said, engine braking does carry a risk, especially when there's a vehicle following too closely. Without a brake light as a visual cue, the driver behind might not realize what's happening until they're too close for comfort. This is why some modern motorcycles come equipped with G-force activated brake lights. These systems detect deceleration based on motion and activate the brake light even if the levers aren't touched. However, these systems are mostly limited to premium models or available as aftermarket modifications. Most bikes still rely on the old-school system: pull the lever, light comes on. No lever, no light. So if you're driving behind a motorcycle and it seems like it's slowing for no reason, it's probably just engine braking at work. No games, no brake checking. Just a rider using their machine the way it was designed. Give them space, stay alert, and remember, bikes don't always follow the same signals as cars, but they still follow the rules of the road. While engine braking can throw off drivers, what really makes people panic is how quickly motorcycles launch forward the moment a light turns green. It looks dramatic, almost like the rider is trying to drag race everyone on the road. You might glance at your speedometer, confused, wondering what just happened. But here's the truth. It's not about showing off. It's about physics, positioning, and safety. What looks like aggressive acceleration is often just how motorcycles naturally move. Motorcycles are significantly lighter than cars and usually have a much higher power-to-weight ratio. That means even a small twist of the throttle sends them forward quickly, with a sense of urgency that seems exaggerated only because we're so used to the sluggish crawl of cars from a stop. Take the Triumph Bonneville T120. It produces around 79 horsepower and weighs about 530 pounds. That gives it a power-to-weight ratio of approximately 0.149. Now compare that to something like a Toyota Corolla. The Corolla makes roughly 139 horsepower, but weighs nearly 3,000 pounds, which means its power-to-weight ratio sits at just 0.048. So when the light turns green and the motorcycle takes off like it's being chased, what you're seeing is simply a result of better weight distribution and mechanical efficiency. The rider isn't revving their engine to make a point. They're just getting out ahead of traffic in a way that feels completely normal from their saddle, but looks like overkill from yours. There's also a real safety advantage. Quick acceleration allows motorcyclists to pull ahead of the traffic pack and reduce the time spent in blind spots. The longer a rider sits beside a car or truck, the higher the risk of being sideswiped or cut off. Getting ahead of surrounding vehicles places them in a cleaner, more predictable position relative to the flow of traffic, which reduces the likelihood of an accident. It's also important to understand that not all motorcyclists accelerate the same way. Riders on cruisers or large touring bikes often take off more slowly. Newer riders might be extra cautious at intersections, but riders on sportier machines or smaller commuters are likely to make brisker starts, not to race, but to stay in control and maintain their lane space. If you're a driver and a motorcycle pulls away quickly at a light, don't take it personally. No one's trying to race your SUV on the school run. It's not about ego, it's about visibility and self-preservation. Giving them a bit of space and not reacting competitively makes the road safer for everyone. And believe it or not, that quick launch is probably the least dramatic move you'll see. Wait until you catch one leaning halfway off the side of the bike in a turn. That's where the real magic happens. Seeing a motorcyclist hanging off the side of their bike in a turn can be downright alarming if you've never ridden one yourself. It looks unstable, like the rider is losing their balance or about to fall. But in reality, it's one of the most effective techniques for improving control in corners. This method is called body positioning, and it plays a big role in how motorcycles handle curves, especially at speed. By shifting their body to the inside of the turn, the rider reduces the amount of lean the motorcycle itself needs to make. This keeps more of the tire in contact with the road, which improves traction and lowers the risk of sliding out. Less lean also gives riders more flexibility to adjust mid-turn if something changes, like gravel on the road or a tighter curve than expected. It's a strategy borrowed from track racing, but it has its place on the street too. Even when riders aren't on the racetrack, body positioning can make everyday riding safer. In wet conditions or on winding roads, leaning into the turn with the body helps maintain stability and predictability. And while some riders do it more aggressively than necessary, especially when they're feeling dramatic on a scenic road, it's still grounded in technique, not just theatrics. Contrary to what it looks like, this isn't easy to pull off. It takes training and practice. Riders have to understand how their body weight interacts with the machine's center of gravity, and how even small shifts can affect traction. That's why courses like those from the Motorcycle Safety Foundation teach this skill in controlled environments. It's not just something you figure out on your first ride. So when you see a rider dropping their shoulder into a turn or leaning off to one side, they're not out of control. They're doing what's safest for the bike and themselves. It might not look like the kind of thing you'd do behind the wheel of a car, but that's exactly the point. Bikes aren't cars, and the skills required to ride them well often look strange until you understand what's actually happening. Now, if there's one thing that frustrates drivers almost as much as sudden slowing or rapid takeoffs, it's the mysterious blinker that never turns off. You're behind a bike, watching them ride straight for several minutes with their turn signal blinking away like a broken metronome. You wait for them to turn. They don't. You wait again. Still nothing. Eventually you give up, wondering if they're just forgetful, or worse, trying to be unpredictable on purpose. Here's the reality. Most motorcycles don't have self-canceling indicators. Unlike in cars, where the turn signal clicks off automatically after the steering wheel returns to center, motorcycles require the rider to manually cancel the signal. And with everything else going on, managing the throttle, brakes, clutch, mirrors, gear shifting, and staying balanced in traffic, it's easy to forget to flip that switch back off. It's not laziness. It's just that motorcycles demand a lot more multitasking than most people realize. Some higher-end bikes, like those from Harley-Davidson, BMW, or Triumph, do come equipped with self-canceling systems. These use timers or sensors to shut off the indicator automatically. But for the majority of standard, budget-friendly, or older motorcycles, the blinker stays on until the rider manually turns it off. And since riders are often scanning for road hazards, watching surrounding traffic, and focusing on control, missing that one extra step happens all the time. This creates two main problems. One, it confuses car drivers who expect a turn that never comes. Two, it can be dangerous if another driver assumes the motorcyclist is about to turn or change lanes. Misreading a signal at high speed can easily lead to misjudged gaps or lane merges, and that's how collisions happen. This is particularly risky on highways or in tight city traffic where decisions are made in seconds. If you're driving and notice a bike riding with its indicator on for too long, the smartest thing you can do is stay alert and avoid making assumptions. Don't pass them aggressively thinking they're about to pull off. And if you end up beside them at a red light or stop sign, a simple hand gesture, opening and closing your fingers like a blinking light, might politely let them know their signal is still on. Most riders will appreciate it. And if you're a rider yourself, train yourself to glance at your signal after every turn or lane change. Cancel it immediately if it's still flashing. It might seem minor, but it's a small habit that helps everyone around you, especially drivers who rely on visual cues to understand your next move. So the next time you see that persistent blinker flickering endlessly, don't assume it's carelessness. It's just one of those quirks that come with riding a machine that doesn't do all the thinking for you. Watching someone stand upright on a moving motorcycle looks, frankly, alarming if you don't know why they're doing it. It seems reckless, like they're about to perform a stunt, show off for traffic, or completely lose control. But in most cases, the explanation is surprisingly simple and practical. The rider is either trying to avoid a rough bump in the road or just stretching out a stiff back. Nothing more, nothing flashy. Standing on the pegs temporarily helps the rider shift their body weight and relieve pressure on their spine and joints. It also gives their legs a break, especially on longer rides where staying seated can get uncomfortable quickly. Unlike modern car seats, which are designed with ergonomics in mind and often feature soft cushioning, adjustable positions, and lumbar support, motorcycle seats tend to be narrow, firm, and less forgiving. Even the best ones aren't exactly built for long hours of comfort. Riders don't just sit, they engage their entire body while riding. They're absorbing bumps through their arms, legs, and core. On longer stretches or uneven roads, standing for a few seconds can help restore circulation, release tension, and prevent fatigue. If you're stuck in hot weather wearing a full riding suit, even a few moments off the seat can provide crucial airflow and comfort, especially in those areas where ventilation isn't ideal. Another common reason riders stand is to deal with road imperfections. If there's a pothole, raised manhole cover, railroad track, or rough patch ahead, standing on the pegs allows the rider to absorb the shock with their knees, rather than letting it jolt their spine. It's a technique adapted from off-road riding and widely used in adventure motorcycling, but it translates well to street riding too, especially in cities where the road is more cratered than smooth. Some bikes, particularly adventure or dual sport models, are designed with standing in mind. Their riding posture allows for upright standing without throwing off balance or control. So when a rider on one of those stands up, they're not showing off, they're using the bike exactly how it was meant to be used. Even sport bike or cruiser riders will occasionally stand to deal with discomfort or get a better view of the road ahead. And yes, sometimes riders simply need to shift around, adjust their gear, stretch out a cramp, or cool off a bit. Riding isn't passive. The body gets sore, gear gets tight, and sometimes your legs just want a break. So when you see someone stand up for a moment while cruising, don't assume they're trying to be dramatic. They're just managing comfort and motion. So if you're driving and you see a motorcyclist rise from the saddle, don't panic. Give them space, stay predictable, and remember, it's not a stunt, it's survival. There's another thing that throws people off, especially when they catch it in the corner of their eye. A motorcyclist suddenly sticking out a hand or tapping the top of their helmet instead of just hitting the horn or using their turn signals. For drivers who've never been on two wheels, it can look confusing, unnecessary, or even dramatic. But in reality, these hand signals are an essential part of motorcycle communication, especially in group rides, or when electronic signals might not be visible or working. One of the most common gestures is the two-finger wave between passing riders. It's not a warning or a challenge, it's just a friendly acknowledgement. A silent way of saying, "Ride safe." Then there's the helmet tap. That usually means there's a police officer or speed trap ahead. Riders use it to quietly alert others to slow down. It's more subtle than flashing headlights and works just as well when traveling in the opposite direction. Another gesture you'll see is the arm out, palm down flap. That means slow down. It's used when there's gravel, an accident, or another hazard ahead. Some riders will also extend a leg to the side briefly to point at road debris or a pothole, especially when riding in a staggered group where verbal warnings are impossible. These signals are useful, practical, and often life-saving in dense or fast-moving traffic. Why not just use indicators or horns? Because those tools only communicate so much. A horn can mean anything from "I'm here" to "I'm angry," and turn signals don't cover every scenario. Hand signals are direct, visual, and don't depend on the other person hearing you. They've been part of motorcycling for decades, long before every bike came with high-tech displays and sensors. In group riding, hand signals become even more important. Riders in the front communicate hazards, stops, or turns to those behind using consistent, universally understood gestures. This ensures that everyone, even those further back who can't hear or see road signs clearly, gets the message. It's a system based on trust, visibility, and awareness. No yelling, no flashing lights, just clear body language. If you're a driver and a motorcyclist starts waving their arms, don't assume they're angry or distracted. More likely, they're trying to share important information with other riders, or even with you. It might look unconventional, but it's just another layer of safety that keeps riders connected. And if anything, it shows how much motorcyclists rely on awareness and proactive communication to stay safe. So the next time you see what looks like someone flapping around on their bike, remember, they're probably just warning the next guy to slow down before a surprise speed bump eats his front tire. That's not overreacting. That's teamwork. When you see a rider zipping through traffic on what looks like a dirt bike, your first thought is probably, how is that thing even street legal? To the untrained eye, it doesn't belong. Knobby tires, tall suspension, minimalist bodywork. It looks like it just came from a motocross track. But in most cases, what you're seeing isn't an off-road bike breaking the rules. It's a specific type of motorcycle designed for both on-road and off-road use, and it's entirely legal. These are called dual sport bikes. They're built to be lightweight and durable, with suspension designed to handle rough terrain, but also meet all the legal requirements for riding on public roads. They come with mirrors, turn signals, license plate mounts, and often comply with emissions and noise regulations. If it has a plate and working lights, it's probably street legal, even if it looks like it belongs in the mountains. Then there are supermotos, dirt bikes that have been modified with road tires, better brakes, and tweaked suspension. These bikes keep the visual style of off-road machines but are incredibly agile on pavement. Riders love them for their quick handling, ease of control, and the fact that they can hop curbs or cut through rough patches without blinking. But again, if they're plated, insured, and have working equipment, they're not breaking any laws. Another category is the adventure bike, larger and more road-friendly than a typical dirt bike, but still capable of handling gravel, mud, or unpaved routes. Adventure riders often commute on weekdays and head into the wild on weekends. They wear gear that looks more like hiking equipment than leather, and their bikes carry luggage racks, GPS mounts, and oversized fuel tanks for long hauls. The look might throw you off, but the bikes are as legitimate as any other on the road. Why does this confuse people so much? Mostly because the design language of dirt bikes screams off-road only. And unless you're a rider, it's easy to assume anything with a motocross silhouette isn't meant to be riding next to minivans on a 4-lane road. But the law says otherwise. If it meets road safety standards, it's allowed on the same pavement as a sedan or pickup truck. If you're unsure, check for a license plate, mirrors, or turn signals. And if it has those, treat it like any other vehicle. Because that's what it is. It may not look like a traditional motorcycle, but it belongs on the road just as much as the one behind you at the red light. With that, we have reached the end of today's video. If you have come this far with us, be sure to check out other videos on the channel.